So doing a little bit of your own education, a little bit of your own research, which allows you to have that ownership and making a plan. And then lastly, don't forget to plan recovering. People will often
That's a big one.
plan to eat better, and they'll plan to do exercise 3 times a week, and they'll plan to get 5 miles in a week, but then they forget to plan.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 24 of the Odd Inspiring Athlete podcast. This week we are speaking with coaches Jonathan Fiser and Phillip Butler about tips for training smarter in the gym as well as in the kitchen. So before we get started, let's go ahead and hit our housekeeping items real quick. First and foremost is my caveat. I'm not an expert that works in the health and fitness field. I am just like the rest of you, somebody who has a lot of passion around health, fitness, and nutrition, and has had some struggles due to poor habits along the way. And it wasn't until I got the help of a very patient professional coach that this changed for me personally. Number 2 is our goal. Our goal is to speak with industry professionals about topics trending in the health and fitness community. And this is really kind of our way of giving back to others. And it's really intended for any type of athlete. So you could be someone who's just getting started and you're a little overwhelmed with all the information that is available everywhere. Or you could be a little bit more of a seasoned professional that is just interested in hearing what the smart and practical guys have to say. Our third goal and last one is, hey guys, we love hearing from you. So please keep hitting us up. You can get us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We have a Google voicemail, which I will plug all those details into the show notes, as well as a Gmail, which is theoddinspiringathlete@gmail.com. Anyways, let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. Hey guys, welcome to the Odd Inspiring Athlete podcast. This week we're going to be speaking with Coach Jonathan Fiser and Phillip Butler about ways to, what are we doing this week?
Tips for working smarter.
Tips for working smarter in the gym and in the kitchen.
There we go.
Before we get started though, guys, how about you each tell us a little bit about yourself? Let's start with Jonathan.
All right. Well, I think this is like the 9th or 10th time I've explained this story, but it's probably changed each time.
You poor thing.
But anyway, when I was young, around 11, 12, I played a lot of sports, and I got hurt from basically overtraining and improper coaching, and I tore my labrum in my shoulder, and that took me to physical therapy. I was young enough, and the tear wasn't complete enough for them to want to actually give me surgery, so they just sent me straight to therapy. And that guy changed my life, and he kind of helped shape what I wanted to learn about and what I wanted to study. So that's what I ended up doing in college, was going and getting the physical therapy side, and then realized that physical therapy is not quite what I thought it was. And that's where I ran into exercise physiology or exercise science. And that led me to where I am today.
So what was it about the physical therapy that was just kind of like, no? It
was the, and again, everything changes. That was nearly 10 years ago when I made the decision now, but they changed it just to a doctorate program from a master's program, and it was a lot more like paperwork, a lot more things not in front of clientele, and so that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do what this guy had done for me, and that requires me to be in front of people.
A little bit more hands-on.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, Phil, how about you?
Yeah, so very similar background, lots of sports growing up, and I grew up around, my family wasn't very healthy, And so seeing that and being a part of that, I was always told, you had to be this particular way, you're going to have these particular conditions like diabetes because you're part of family. And I just never really believed in that. And so
Genetic,
everything was genetics, right? Whether that was good or bad. So I just felt like that was never true. It never really made a lot of sense to me that I didn't have autonomy on my body and my health. And so over the years, and spent some time in the military and a little bit of college, I just realized that I really had a drive to help other people realize that same thing. As I pushed myself, I wanted to push others as well. So
you're a Marine, right?
I am.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
It's an honor.
Fantastic. We're lucky to have you. Okay, so guys, on the topic of working smarter in the gym and in the kitchen, especially with some holidays right around the corner, why is this important? What areas do you think we should touch on today that will help our clients and listeners?
Yeah. Well, I think in one of the other podcasts that I did, it might have been the one that Phillip and I did together, I think it's really important when you're asking a question like that, because it's a relatively vague general question, which is fine, but you have to get a little bit more into a definition of what does working smarter mean? What am I trying to work smarter in? Is it trying to work smarter by cutting down the time I have to prep my food? Is it trying to work smarter by getting to run a marathon for my first time, or anything? So it's really important to make that definition and consolidate that question into what are you actually trying to accomplish. And then from there, that's when you can start truly being smarter about your approach to something.
Right.
So I think that's really the first step in being smarter is find your definition and make it a clear definition so you have a clear goal of where you're going to go and what you're going to do. Once you have that, then you can start to seek out specific information, and that's where, in my opinion, experts would come into the play. And by experts, I don't necessarily mean like you got to go hire an expert or anything like that. You can find a ton of information out there. I did that. Like, I just ran my marathon for my first time, and I went and used a guy online that was free called Hal Higdon, and it was actually really great, and it didn't cost me anything to do. So
how did that work out for you, by the way? The birthday marathon?
Everything was great other than the elements. So Mother Nature can get the big middle finger on that.
It was really cold that day.
It was super cold, and it was raining literally the whole day, and then it actually ended up snowing that night. October 14th, it snowed.
Happy birthday to you.
Right?
Yeah, big 3-0. But yeah, and then last, after, again, you define that, you seek out the information, then you got to actually build a plan with it. And that's the part that I think is working smarter, not harder, is you actually take that time at the beginning to build a plan out and to set out exactly what you're going to go through.
Right.
So,
what about you, Phil?
I'd agree with everything he said. I think when he talks about a plan, understanding that when you have a plan, that doesn't mean that you have to attack or accomplish every single thing in that plan at one time. I think for me and my clientele over these last few years, what's made us most successful is that we don't try to take too big of steps at one time. Especially depending on their readiness level and their capabilities or resources. Try to focus on one small thing at a time, if that's you, and really master that, and then as that becomes an automatic for you, you can continue to do other things. So
it could be as specific or as non-specific. So if you're like, hey, Phillip, you have a conversation with someone and be like, I really need you to start figuring out how to get more protein in your diet, focus on good, clean sources of that.
Right.
That would be,
what protein is, and if you really need the education, figure out what it is, figure out the different sources and what fits your lifestyle, and work on mastering that. You don't have to have a complete balanced diet day one. I think sometimes that we're taught or conditioned to believe that to be successful, but I think taking those small steps and, like you said, building that plan and working to your plan is going to make you most successful. So
I also think too, regardless of the plan, is understanding that it doesn't happen. Nothing happens overnight. It takes time. What does it take? Like 3 to 4 weeks for your body to kind of start adjusting to whatever you're doing or putting it through. So understanding that, it's gonna take time for you to start to see or feel the change. Sometimes it could be a week. It depends on the individual. Sometimes it could be 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I fully agree with what Phillip was saying there. The more simple it can be, even if it's something you've been in health and fitness for a long time, the more simple you can make it, the more opportunity that it's actually going to work. And the reason for that is because you can be consistent with simple. It's really difficult to be consistent with complex. And you had just mentioned 3-4 weeks to get a change. Well, our body only changes when we give it a reason to change. And so if you're inconsistent with giving it a reason to change, it's not going to change. So keep it simple. Pick 1 or 2 things to change in a finite period of time. Make it a habit and a behavior, and then have another simple goal come on.
You talk about pick a few things. It's funny to me because it seems like, and I am just as guilty as this as anybody, is sometimes I try to change too much all at once, right? And then I'm like, I can't really pinpoint the reason why something might be working or might not be working because I'm trying all these different things.
Yeah, for sure.
So just even in the keep it simple is, come up with a plan. And Nick talked about this last time was come with a plan and implement these small things one at a time versus trying to flood your system or your body with all this stuff all at once, because otherwise you're really not going to know what's going to work and what doesn't work, right?
And I got to say, because listeners and even when I heard that the first time, that's the advice, keep it simple. But the key to it, the part that is difficult is knowing what to keep simple, knowing what to change, knowing what to do. So that's where, going back to what I had referred to as, seeking out an expert or educating yourself, that's when you learn what that simple change needs to be. So it's not as simple as just keep it simple.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So, and we'll touch on this here in a little bit. You guys will share some of the resources you guys with us, because it's also interesting when you go out and research. Part of the reason why we're here is there's a lot of different places where you can get information, and sometimes it's hard to tell what's good advice and what's bad advice. So we want to make sure that when we share that information with people, that they understand that it's like Lifetime. The knowledge is backed with solid, proven information, science, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to pick on you a little bit, Phillip.
Yeah.
Nutrition. I feel like this is one of the toughest for people, especially this time of the year. What are some things that we typically see people struggle with, and what are some tools that we can use to get results right away?
Yeah. I know we just talked about, being consistent and not trying to do a bunch of things at the one time, and that's probably the overwhelming thing. But as I was thinking about this, I've noticed a trend, and I think Jonathan and I had this conversation a few years ago, for people's mindset around making a decision. So it can be as simple as asking me about a supplement. I might get, will this supplement help me lose weight? Will this protein powder help me lose weight? And well, yeah, it can. I mean, there's indirect ways it can help you lose weight, but if I look at the mental or the idea behind that question, it's I don't want you to think about taking these supplements or doing these things to help you do this one particular thing. Think about it as, is this going to aid to my health? Is this going to help me get closer to my health or a better health standpoint, as opposed to, will this lead me to X? You know what I'm saying?
Well, so it's I think too what you're kind of touching on is it's not just as simple as just the measure of losing weight, because losing weight sometimes can be a sign of something not right too, right?
That's
so
true.
You're talking about overall balance and wellness, not just the losing weight perspective.
Around this time, especially this time of year, like you said, people want that quick fix, and that's just our society. I like convenience as well. If he said, if it's easy for me, then I'm probably going to do it. Whether that's a good or a bad behavior, I'm probably going to do it if it's really, really easy. So, like I said, making it easy, but just thinking about not causing that decision or not allowing that decision to, this is going to make me lose this weight, because, like you said, I want to achieve health first, and then weight loss or performance. You have to be healthy before you perform in the Olympics. You don't become an Olympic performer and then all of a sudden you're healthy.
Right.
You have to become healthy, and then you can do whatever it is you want to do. So
it's like my favorite, and I'm sure you guys both hear this. Oftentimes people will be like, hey, you want to come try this class that we have? And some people are like, well, I got to get in shape first before I go do that. And it's like, no, that's not how it works.
I just heard that.
Right. I got to get my diet. I got to get my diet cleaned up before I go do my AMA. Right. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah. It's like my teeth are falling out, but let me brush my teeth a whole bunch and then go to the dentist.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean, that's part of the reason why we're here, right? Is you guys are here to help people, coach them, teach them how to make the right decisions, and then when they don't make the right decisions, it's normal, right? So then that leads me to the topic of, right, so Thanksgiving's right around the corner for those that celebrate. which means that there's probably going to be a lot of gluttony.
Yes.
And
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I understand.
Yeah.
This weekend, in fact, both of you guys will be there. I understand you, in fact, are the type of coach that you don't encourage deprivation of food, right? Like, if you want to eat it, but just understand why you want it.
Right, and like you said, understanding who you are and what it is you want to do, and where you're at mentally. I don't live my life counting my macros. I mean, I just don't do that. You can do that if you want to, but I just am at the point where I don't have to do that. If I want to change my body, I know what it's going to take to get there, because it's more intuitive, and that's what I challenge my clients to believe in. Like, a lot of times people know what to do. I think intuitively we know what to eat, we know what decisions to make, but it's just we're just clouded with a bunch of other things. Eat this, do this new fad thing, so it gets clouded, our judgment. But I would never deprive myself of my mother's cooking on Thanksgiving. It's just not possible. So I told you before, I love sweet potato pie, so I'm going to have some this weekend. A lot of it.
There you go.
But we just got done doing alpha, so I mean, it's a balance.
Yeah, you look like you look like you're flexing right now. I don't know what's going on.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But no deprivation though.
No. So when it comes to, especially around sugar is a pretty sensitive topic.
Yes, it is.
Is there a good tool that we can use to put in our tool belt when it comes to pie or dessert, when it comes to Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner? Like, what do you suggest? Do you just pick one thing, a little bit of each thing? Like, don't not eat it.
Right.
Like, you don't sit there and say, I'm on keto.
Right.
It's not. I don't eat pie, or I'm on.
So that's a good question. So I think about it as if I'm eating totally unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I choose one weekend out of the month to eat salads and fruits and protein all weekend long. 1 weekend out of the month, I'm not going to lose any weight. It's not possible. So if I eat healthy, and then 1 weekend out of the month, I choose to have Thanksgiving dinner, or a pizza party with my friends, I'm not going to gain any weight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's what you value most. I'm going to eat healthy and sleep right most of the time.
Yeah.
And if you're healthy, we can get you there. But if you're healthy, you shouldn't have to be spot on 100% all the time.
Yeah.
That's probably not very fun.
So and I think it's also understanding, like, listening to your body too when it says, hey, I've had enough. Don't put anything else in my body. It's also understanding that too, and don't push yourself to the point where you're in a comatose, laying on the couch and you can't move.
Your body's never wrong.
And your wife's yelling at you because you need to do dishes and you're not. Yeah.
Your body is never wrong. So if it's telling you something, just listen to it.
Yeah. Okay. So, anything else you want to touch on as far as tools to put in our tool belt for nutrition? Yeah,
I'll say and there's different opinions about it, and sometimes I'm the type of person that I like to make a goal and put my head down and do it. I don't have to tell a bunch of people, but sometimes it does help that other people know what you're doing. So if you're big on family, tell your family, this is what I'm doing. These are my goals. This is what it looks like, and don't do it as far as you don't have to go work out. You get to go work out, right? So just even changing the word you say, I don't have to stop eating this. I choose to stop eating it, or I choose to stop eating this much of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So just reframe the way you're saying it. Our brain, I heard this off of some podcast the other day I was listening to. I thought it was awesome. Your brain is the most superhuman computer ever to be known by man, and your words are the software. So whatever you say, whatever you plug into
language, whatever language
your body's going to do it.
So positive versus negative is, I get to go do this, I get to do that.
I get to enjoy this food this weekend.
I get to go train. I get to go swim a mile this weekend. Yeah.
I get to run 10,000 miles if you're Coach Steve.
Are you really?
No, I'm not.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely not.
It's like, what? Okay, so Jonathan, how about you? Training-wise, what are some tools that we can use to be successful, especially through these holidays that are coming up, to kind of stay on track?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to go back to the basics, and the basics is education. I preach a lot of that. We preach a lot of that here. And really, and this applies to nutrition even, like that's step one. Step one is understanding the very foundation, the very basics of whatever it is you're trying to change. So if you're wanting to be better at exercising, becoming an athlete, or if you're wanting to eat healthier so you can lose weight, it'd probably be a pretty smart idea to learn a little bit more about the basics of nutrition or the basics of anatomy, or physiology even for that matter. So that can sound overwhelming, but I really think that's the place to start, Because if you go educate yourself a little bit, then it's going to be way easier to start retaining new education. So, one of the tools that I used even back in college was YouTube. And I'm going to tell people to go do this. I mean, if you don't need a big college education or a fancy textbook. All you need is somebody to show you where a muscle inserts to a joint, or a bone rather, and then the function of it. And if you can learn those basic things, then your exercise is going to get a lot more functional, a lot more, what's the word we've been talking about? Smarter.
Yeah. What's that word again?
Yeah.
Smarter.
Right.
Yeah. That was not a delay for effect either. That was
No. It was very well played. I was impressed. Jonathan,
can I add one thing to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that also, you talked about education and taking ownership of like having your own education, even just a little bit. That also allows you to sift through all that information a little bit better. So if you have a slight idea of what you're talking about, you can send some BS, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So
right, for sure. So I mean, in terms of the exercise portion, again, the A&P, the anatomy physiology side, I think is super important for, even if you're going to go start with a trainer or anything, just go learn a little bit about it, and you'll learn more about it as you go on with it. On the other side, one tool that I never got to start using until really I started working here was something called Khan Academy. And this thing, if you've never heard of it, it's a great
I don't know
service.
what it is.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a free education service, and this is not a plug for Khan Academy. It's not a paid plug.
That's okay. Maybe they'll send you a check.
Right. Yeah. But no, they're legit. They're doing really cool things. They have a free app, and it's KHAN, Khan Academy. You can find their videos on YouTube. But what they do is they take really complicated information and then figure out how to get it across to somebody in a 3-minute long video, and they do a really good job of it. So understanding, weight loss being a goal, understanding basic principles of metabolism, you can learn those things in 15 minutes on the computer with a few videos.
Khan Academy.
Yeah. It's really, really cool. And the coolest part is that they actually have everything from like spelling in preschool to advanced calculus. I mean, they have everything in between.
Not that I'd want to do the calculus thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if you would. But
nah, math never was one of my big subjects.
Yeah.
I need like units for math to make sense to me. That's another rabbit
What
hole.
are we measuring?
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, in terms of tools to be smarter when you're working out, I'm going to reiterate, it's the education part of it. It's understanding, why does my squat do what it does? And why, or how do I feel when it's not right? And then what do I do differently? Like, that's what trainers are doing. But if you have a little bit of that understanding, then you're going to get a lot more out of the workout. As far as more, tangible things to be paying attention to, heart rate is always going to be one that's going to be up there.
So you're talking about like the heart rate variability thing?
That's one part of heart rate, yeah. Heart rate variability being, how is your heart rate changing at rest, and when you wake up, is it higher than normal, lower than normal? What's the variance that it had from the last day? And that can give you a really great understanding of, am I recovered enough to go exercise again? But really, what I was initially talking about with heart rate is measuring intensity. So I mean, you can be a lot smarter with your workouts if you understand what intensity you should be at. And one of the easiest ways to measure that is through your heart rate, because it is relative to you, not to the workload. So it's like, if I want to go high intensity, that could be 6 miles an hour for you, but it could be 8.5 miles an hour for me. So that's why you can't just give workloads randomly to people, right? I just thought I'd give myself that one. I just ran a marathon, if you didn't know.
Wow.
We did. This is the second time we've talked about it.
Okay, last plug on myself.
All right.
But yeah, so heart rate, if you've never used it before, do a little bit of research on it. They're super easy to get now. I mean, in terms of barrier to cost, you can get them for as cheap as $20 now, or as expensive as $1,000, just depending on what you're doing.
Ooh.
Yeah. But really, the last tool that I was going to talk about was VO2 testing, and I'm going to call it that. Here at Lifetime we call it an AMA, but it's at the end of the day, it's VO2 testing, and similarly to heart rate, it's showing us how somebody works on their level. What is their body doing versus what the person next to them is doing? And when you see those numbers, without getting super deep, when you see those numbers, then you know exactly how to stress somebody. And if you know exactly how to stress somebody to get a specific result, that's what my definition would be of working smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever have the opportunity, any of the listeners, to be able to do something like that, whether it be through Lifetime or not, it's some really cool information, especially when it's explained properly.
So the AMA too can kind of tell you whether or not your nutrition's in line too, right? Is that correct?
It can show you. It shows you what your body has a tendency to want to utilize for energy. So you're talking about carbohydrates versus fats.
Fats.
What your body is leaning on mostly to use for energy at different workloads, like he's mentioning. So typically your body wants to use what is most readily available, and typically basically as glucose anyway. But especially if we're ingesting a lot of carbohydrates, and our body wants to do that, even at lower heart rates. So yeah, it can give you deep insight of what your nutrition is like, and it can just, it's like one of those, I don't know what the word is, but, variables that you can look at and see. So
allows you to be a little bit more scientific about it.
You can make better decisions if you have an EDMA, because now you can eliminate certain variables that maybe nutrition is on point, you're doing X, Y, Z. So
Gotcha. What else you got, Jonathan? Are you ready for me to true false you?
No, let's go for it. Let's go to true false.
All right. True or false? An AMA or RMA can help determine if the body is getting the right types of fuel. Oh, ding, ding, ding. We just answered that.
You guys kind of started talking
why
about
or why not?
Obviously, to reiterate exactly what Phillip just said, 100% true. Body tends to use what's most available. So if you're measuring if somebody's using carbohydrates or if somebody's using fat as energy, then you're going to find out what kind of fuel they've really been ingesting. If somebody eats like crap and eats a bunch of carbs all the time, and
sugar, and
then they do a test, it will show they are using carbohydrates as their primary energy source. So, true, it does give us a sense of if what they're eating and if it's the right amount. But I gotta say that it's not definitive. It's not comes back and you're like, oh, yep, this is exactly what's wrong. It gives us a very good idea. There's so many other metrics, so many other variables that go into that. Enzymes alone are going to play a huge role if that's going to be used or not be used.
Right.
So there are ways to look at that too. That's where blood analysis comes in, and having different labs looked at, you can find that out. But to give a little bit of an insight on, when we talk about having an AMA done, an active metabolic assessment or a VO2 test, or a BMR test done, which would be the resting version of that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to tell us the difference between those.
Yeah, and ours is called the resting metabolic assessment. Yeah. But again, at the end of the day, it's looking at resting metabolism or basal metabolism. Wow.
We got some theme music
got a
here.
lot of emails
Keep
going
talking,
on over there.
Just kind of talk through it. It's good.
Yeah, it's music.
But so the way the test works is you breathe into a mask, and we get to measure how much oxygen you consume and how much CO2 you produce. And oxygen has to be present for fat to be used, plain and simple. But there are other factors in there, right? So you can't move the fat around unless you have albumin present. We don't measure albumin. So that's just one of my examples of, yes, it gives us a good idea, but no, it doesn't give us a perfect example of how much fat you're using or how much carbs you're using.
Is there a way to do that?
Measure.
Yeah, how do
no. I'm saying that this test, do an AMA test.
Okay, so
lab testing is another difference here, and that's the blood analysis stuff that I was talking about.
And you guys do that here, right?
We do that here as well.
Dang, man.
We just switched it up. Phil wants to speak a little bit on that.
Yeah, we did. So, we actually have a partnership with Quest Diagnostics, so where they have phlebotomists comes in and we do blood work. So we just, again, he's talking about the more pieces you can know about somebody's metabolism at the end of the day, you can genuinely help them better, and you can help them smarter, and you can help them more efficiently. We do a really good job of guessing because we do have an education and we do have some, we have experience, but it also is a lot easier for even the most experienced professionals to do it when they have, actual physiology and blood marks to look at. So the most successful coaches out there, they don't start training someone without knowing who they are inside and out.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you guys get stumped every now and then too, so you need to rely on those kind of tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's one I was.
We would rather rely on those. I mean, there's no point in us guessing if we don't need to guess.
Helps you understand more, right? Because the blood is an example of something that can tell you so much. You learn so much just from a blood test.
We literally refer to it as a roadmap here. I mean, you come in here and you tell me these symptoms you're having, and then I basically point on the map where I think the problem's at. So you tell me that you're cold often, you're hungry a lot, and you crash when you get home. Well, I have an idea that that problem is happening probably in your thyroid or your adrenals. That's like saying there's an issue in the United States of America out of the whole world, right? I can consolidate a very small portion
We're on
of
this
that.
continent. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So then if you take that idea, you take these symptoms and you narrow the search. If I have an idea, well, now let's go get blood metrics looked at that area.
Yeah.
Now we pinpoint it down to a state within the continent, and then a city within that, and then an actual address.
Physical address.
Right. That's what labs are for.
I think it's really cool how far like the labs can help you too. Like I've even heard about analysis of like your sweat too, where you can figure out like what are you deficient in when you get do you need sodium? Do you need potassium? Are you magnesium? Like what is it? And I'm like, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
All right,
There's
so
content in all of it.
your turn. You guys get to try to
Oh
stump me.
yeah, stump you. Phil, what do you got?
Man.
Well, and this is literally off the top of my head because I actually had one written down. But
Did you? Look at you.
So prepared.
But I flipped the answer over. You're talking over here about different things in your sweat.
Yeah.
Do you know what? No, that's not true or false. What are the 5 electrolytes?
It's also not true or false.
I know, but you started naming them, and you started talking about hydration and sweat.
Sodium.
Yeah.
That's one.
Potassium, magnesium. I don't know what the other things are.
Did you know those are electrolytes?
Yeah. I did because I listened to a podcast about it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Calcium and phosphorus are the other ones, but
I didn't even thought about those other 2.
yeah.
So, what do I get? No, I'm joking.
Well, you get not a crisp high 5, but just a regular one because you only got 3 to 5.
That was kind of lame. I was waiting for Philip's true false to be like, is there going to be sweet potato pie this weekend? True
There
or
you
false?
go.
That's a good question. You should answer that.
You should answer.
I'm going to do my best. I will make the best
right.
sweet potato pie I can.
I think
That's
you'll be all right.
I'm not going to say it's gonna measure up to your mama's, but I'm going to do my best. All right. So, for our listeners, what are 3 to 5 things you want them to walk away with and remember from this episode? And when should we get help?
I think, again, I've talked about education a lot. Doing your own education, doing your own research is a really big part of it. One, just because it helps you sift through what is incorrect and who you should listen to. But the other one is because it allows you to take a little more ownership of the plan that you're making. And if you make your plan, or if you help somebody make your plan, then you're a lot more likely to actually follow through and get something out of that plan. So one of the biggest issues is if somebody comes in and asks me to build a plan or asks me to train them, and they want nothing to do other than show up and do exactly what I tell them, well, they have nothing invested in that. Money maybe, but they're probably not going to get to the goal because they didn't help do any of it. They just showed up.
You need some investment for
You
them.
need some ownership in it. So doing a little bit of your own education, a little bit of your own research, which allows you to have that ownership and making a plan. And then lastly, don't forget to plan recovering. People will often
That's a big one.
plan to eat better, and they'll plan to do exercise 3 times a week, and they'll plan to get 5 miles in a week. But then they forget to plan to recover. A day off is not planning to recover.
It's not a bad thing, folks.
Right. So those would probably be the big points that I would say to remember walking away from this one.
What about you, Philip?
Yeah, so the one thing that I would say is, if there's one thing you can remember, is try to make a slightly better decision every day, right? So nutritionally, exercise-wise, whatever it is, try to make a slightly better decision every single day. And think about your plan from a macro view, a large scale, but also think every day, because you have to execute that plan every day. So if you can choose less pop today, then do that, I'm not going to tell you how much pop you can drink, but if you can choose, you know what, yesterday I had 4 cans, I'm going to have 3 today.
How about carbonated water?
I think that's awesome.
Okay.
Well, and another good way, we do this a lot with people, is when they're making those small changes, instead of removing what you love, soda in this case, add something in with it that is better.
Replace
So-
it. I know Adam's big on that too.
Yeah, so instead of, maybe instead of trying to go down to 3 from 4, you add in 20 ounces of water before you have 1.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I think it helps reframe the mind around the choice itself, and then it helps create what used to be an unhealthy behavior into a healthy one.
Yeah, and a lot of time it will also show you didn't actually need it.
Yeah.
You just thought you did.
Yeah.
So you give your body what you actually need, and then it realizes, I don't want the 20 ounce Mountain Dew anymore.
No, we're the 2-liter bottles every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And then one more. You talked about language a lot.
Mhm.
It's something I'm working on with my daughter is don't say you can't do something. Just your positive, how you speak to yourself is really, really influential in every single decision we make, whether we know it or not.
There's so much truth in that and I know people that are great about speaking positive about other people, but then sometimes you hear them talk about themselves and they're like, I just don't know if I can fit in those pants. My butt's so big right now or whatever, right? Like that's pretty crude, but it's listening to that language that you use with yourself, because that in itself is important, right? You got to believe you can do it too, or have a more positive outlook and about how you are, or what you can do, or what you're capable of.
Yeah.
It'll surprise you like so much. Like one of my least favorite things to hear is I can't, right?
Yeah,
But I love to hear I'll try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Yoda said it the best. Do or do not. There is no try.
Of course, you're going to lay that one out there. Thank you, Jonathan, for showing your nerd.
I have no problem
appreciate
showing
that.
that.
All right, is there any questions I should have asked that I did not this time? You guys felt good?
I felt like this one was good. It was short and sweet. We talked about the 3 major parts of nutrition, exercise, recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Again, ironically, it kind of came around that it was simple. Like it's not a whole bunch of crazy information. It's just knowing a little bit and being consistent with that little bit. So I think we covered pretty much what we needed to on this one.
I just thought of something.
Apparently
It's
we
for
didn't
Phillip.
cover.
It's for Phillip.
Oh.
So, and I see, because I tend to shop around quite a bit locally here in town, and there was something I saw the other day, and I was reading the flyer they had on it, but there was a store that was selling milk thistle or something like that, and they were talking about how if you overindulge, this will help you feel better about yourself or help your digestion system. Do you want, like you had talked a little bit about before, if it seems too good to be true, chances are it's too good to be true. There is no miracle fix for eating an entire pumpkin pie, right? Like
Not to my knowledge.
no juice that you can get from any Thanksgiving.
Yeah, not to my knowledge.
Yeah. So it's just the premises of that comment or question is understanding that, like, you had talked about all those good habits, and one day of eating something bad is not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
But on the opposite side of the coin, all that bad behavior, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm going to take this drop of whatever, and it'll help me or whatnot.
Yeah, and that just kind of feeds into, the idea that we've been, it's everywhere. It's in marketing magazines, blogs, Instagram, wherever you're at. It's just everywhere.
Because it's easy.
Yeah, it's very easy.
I mean, marketers know exactly what they're doing.
It's not wrong. It should be easy, but we can make healthier decisions more consistent, easier. That's the case. It's just that's also the down part of the health industry too. There's so many ways to make money.
Right.
Capitalizing on people's want to be convenient. So it's a moral thing too. But anyway, so there's no miracle cure, and if you can understand that, I think that helps with everything we talked about today. Is the understanding that there's not a miracle way to do this. I'm gonna have to put in work.
It's going to take work.
Just like
it's going to be hard.
It took work to get to where you are at now, whether that be good or bad. It took work to do it.
But it's worth it.
It is worth it.
Yeah.
Unless it's not, then in which case it wouldn't be.
All right, guys. Thank you again for both of your time.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to talk about that's going on at Lifetime real quick before I let you both go?
I'll talk about the 60-day challenge.
Yeah,
I love it. I'm just jacked. This year was something special. I don't know what it is.
You are jacked. I mean,
I appreciate that.
Big virtual eye roll.
Hands praise emoji. But anyway, 60-day challenge is just cool because it's not about can you lose the most weight or poundage. It's just about high motivation, high accountability, and you get to work with a professional for 8 weeks to guide you, to educate you, to support you, to have fun with you. And if you can just find something like that. I had a lady who didn't want to do the challenge because it fell over the holidays. I'm like, that's why you should do the challenge. She's like, you know what, you're right. So it's just little stuff like that, meet new people, and so I love the idea of, community.
Guys, there's a deal too. It's $60.
$60?
I swear, everything that you get with that $60
You
is
get
amazing.
nutritional plans, nutritional help, exercise plans. Every day is a theme.
They
So
have
he talks about
classes.
recovery,
Yeah.
self-care Sundays, foodie Fridays. I mean, it's
Seminars,
awesome.
yeah.
Seminars, nutrition seminars, cardio seminars. I mean, it's awesome.
You guys got to check it out.
Yeah.
It's awesome. All right. Okay, now I'm going to say thank you. You guys both have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You as well.
And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's a wrap on episode 24. A few takeaways for you guys, which you may have heard some of these before, but we'll go ahead and say them anyways. First and foremost is definitely know where you're going or where you want to go with your goals, because that will help, whether it's you trying to build up a plan in order to train smarter or whatnot, or working with professional, know where you're going to be going and how to cater your program specifically for you. Second is definitely don't be afraid to ask for help. That is definitely an important thing that I've learned over time. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about. How can I make this better or whatnot? And then third, I would say definitely with the holidays around, just around the corner, we just got through Thanksgiving and we have Christmas coming up or whatever holidays you celebrate. Don't forget to live life a little bit and don't forget to relax, because if you are so hyper focused on this thing that you end up dreading the holidays and spending time with your family and whatnot, that's no fun. And that's not really good for you as well. So make sure that you learn to breathe and relax and enjoy a little bit of food and forgive yourself a little bit. If you eat a piece of pie, just stick with one piece of pie. But if you eat two, you're human and it happens, and move on. Don't drag it around with you and let it ruin the whole holiday or the rest of your week or your month or whatnot. Just letting you guys know, we have an episode coming up with Coach Brandon Goman, and he's going to be talking about training 2-a-days and what that looks like. So stay tuned. Thank you for your support, and everybody have a great week.